In today's training, I want to talk to you. In particular, I want to teach non-8A small businesses how you can have more success by teaming up with 8As. So this is really helpful information to large prime contractors, and it's really helpful to small businesses that are not 8A small businesses or certified 8A companies. But it's also helpful to 8A companies because if you're an 8A company, I want you to understand what I'm about to teach others on why they should value you, because you should be communicating that to as many small and large businesses as you can. Hey, we're an 8A firm. That's a valuable relationship to have. Why don't we have a relationship? So I want you to keep that in mind as we move forward. Some of the things that are really important to me, just on why I was thinking about this topic, is because there are three paths to making money in the federal government. You can team and be a subcontractor under small businesses. You can go directly to a federal agency and have prime contracts, and you can team under a large business as a subcontractor. Those three paths are not independent. They're interdependent. And so when you're trying to set your strategy or your long-range goals for revenue, you should be looking at all three paths and determine how you're going to make money on each one of them. If you're new to federal government contracting, start with the small businesses and then the priming, and eventually you'll get to the large subcontracting. But for now, just think about these three paths as you move forward. In fact, I have a graphic. Let me just show it really quick so you see what I'm saying. Right here are the three paths to federal revenue, right? And I talk about getting when you should be looking at it and how you move forward. You should definitely be on all three paths. And in particular for today's training, I'm telling large businesses and larger small businesses, hey, make sure you're teaming with 8As. Make sure you're considering this first arm, which is subbing under a small business that is an 8A certified company. If you'd like a copy of that handout, just again, put handout please in the chat and I will let you know how to get that. The other big thing for larges and other than 8A firms to keep in mind is there's roughly 30 or $40 billion being set aside each year for 8A small businesses. That's a huge chunk of federal spending that you don't have access to. And so if you learn to team with 8A small businesses, you will be able to have access to that if you could bring value to the 8A small businesses. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to dive into it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily live federal sales training where I teach tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. A process is from A to Z. When you follow the process, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. That's why I teach you, give you the knowledge and teach you the skills that I do, is so that you can have repeatable, predictable success in the federal market. Do me a favor, help buyers remember who you are. In the chat, put your core competency and your company name. Your core competency, make sure you're using just 2 or 3 words that let me know what your company does. I'm trying to look in here and see if I see a couple of people I can do some call outs. Actually, I'm not seeing enough. Here we go. I see Rafa for elevators under the construction side. Oh, this is interesting. Development and consulting of Oracle EBS. Hey, Jay, that's kind of a new thing. So I'm glad I'm seeing that. So put a couple of those in. Business development manager down there. Somebody's coming in and can help you. Oh, hey, Carol. Carol just got started on a new initiative. Go check out her profile and you'll see that stuff. But these are people in our community. And that's my second thing to you is engage with those in your community. I just mentioned Carol Yard there because I just happened to see a post of hers yesterday. We're connected on LinkedIn. And so I saw it. I said, congratulations. But also now I'm aware of what she's doing. And as you do the same thing, she can be aware of what you're doing. All right. The last thing is if you're open to connections, right, make sure you tell people that you're open to connections. If I see you connecting into or coming into my training, I'm going to connect with you. I'm going to reach out and connect. And I want each of you in the community to be able to do that same thing. So many people in our community have met here in the chat, gone off and had conversations that have led to working relationships, which is so rewarding for us, right? We don't even participate in that, but we feel like we're part of your success and we're excited for you. Okay, let me start diving into today's topics even further. I talked about there's 3 paths to revenue and this idea of getting access to small businesses that are in there, but I just wanted to expand on the value to non-8A firms for why you should be teaming with 8A companies out there. There's about 6,000 8A firms out there. And if you can begin to work with them, many of them will welcome the chance to work with you. I already said that there's like in 2022, just in a quick data dump that I did, there's about $32 billion that was directly set aside to 8A firms. That doesn't cover all of the awards that were awarded to 8A, but that was just a quick dump from FPDS. And so when you think about $32 billion, right? And that's not $32 billion for the government spending. That's not 32 for larges. That's not 32 billion for all smalls. That's 32 billion spread across 5,000, 6,000 firms, right? It's actually even less because not all of those 8A firms have won a contract in 2022. But if you could get a piece of $32 billion, right? If you could be a subcontractor teaming with an 8A and get a percentage, 20, 30, 40% of a contract, how much would be a win for you, right? And I imagine 1 million would be a lot. 5 million would be a lot. Anybody looking for 10 million, and that's still a huge number, but it's tiny when you compare it to $32 billion. So it's a big pool. There's also vehicles like the 8A Stars 3 contract vehicle. This is a dedicated IT contract vehicle that's out there. I think it's a $50 billion 8-year contract. And so it's got like 6 or 7 years left in it. There's about 1,200 8A firms on there. And you can get access to not only the opportunities that come out on that contract vehicle, but if you have a relationship with 8A firms, you can push opportunities to that contract vehicle that maybe you want to get them off of Oasis or somewhere else, and you bring it over here. If you're working with an 8A firm, if you have a strategic relationship, you'll be able to take advantage of a contract vehicle like that to increase your revenue. Okay, so another reason that you want to value 8A firms as part of your long-range revenue goals and paths to getting federal revenue, right? You're going to look at agencies. Hey, we're going to get money out of the Air Force, or we're going to grow in DHS. But you also want to think about how are we growing in large, small, and prime. And one of the advantages of working with a company like an 8A firm is they could bring opportunities to you. If you've developed a strategic relationship with them, they're in agencies. They're doing business somewhere. They might hear about an opportunity that fits your sweet spot because you guys have a working relationship and you stay in touch. When I talk about strategic relationships, I mean you're talking every 2 to 3 weeks. Anything longer than that, and you're not really seeing it as strategic. You're letting it go too far where you're forgetting. But every 2 weeks, 15 minutes every 2 weeks, and you can get a lot done moving it forward. And so for firms that are not 8A firms will often be invited into opportunities, not necessarily a direct award, but they'll be invited in to participate, or, hey, we're trying to find out whether 8A firms could go in. And so you want to be able to have relationships with these businesses and in order to be able to hear about opportunities. Let me just expand on that. Some of the advantages that 8A firms have that you won't have, and I don't just mean large. I kind of keep saying large, but think about it. If you're a woman-owned business and you're not in 8A, you'll have access to these set-asides as well, right? A HubZone business, not in 8A. Well, they have access to HubZone and 8A if you build strategic relationships. 8A firms have access to the SBAs, the Small Business Administration's business opportunity specialists. And these are people dedicated to helping the 8A firms be compliant and to guide them along their 9-year journey in the 8A program. But they're also there to help them. If they can help make introductions into agencies or to be able to, grease the skids, or if you will, or the tracks to make things go easier, then they will. Well, if you can work with an 8A firm and both of you are trying to push something, an 8A firm has access to the small business, what we call a business opportunity specialist. And these experts are all around the country. Most of us don't have access to them because they are so busy. Most of their energy is focused on 8A firms. And so by teaming up with an 8A, you'll get access to them, which just gives you one more advocate, if you will. There's a presidential driven priority out there, just still going back to this. Why is it valuable? President Biden put out this whole initiative about massively increasing the use of small businesses throughout the government, including small disadvantaged businesses, which 8A basically is the showcase business for that, right? For small disadvantaged businesses. 8As are certified small businesses that are small disadvantaged business. And then there's self-certified. So there's this presidential driven mandate to work more with 8A firms, with small disadvantaged firms in general, but the easiest path to doing that is through 8A businesses. And so you want to ride that wave the same way you would ride a wave of if you do zero trust cybersecurity, and that's a big initiative going on in the government. You want to ride that wave. That's just normal marketing and sales. And so it's the same thing out there as it relates to presidential mandates. Coming down, a couple other things, right? When you go in and start working with an 8A firm, you're getting access to set aside opportunities. That means there's limited or no competition. Sometimes 8A firms can get direct awards of $4 million or up to $20 million or up to $100 million in DoD. They can even go beyond. If you go into FBDS, you can see companies that are winning these huge opportunities. These 8A firms team up with a large prime, and they're able to push opportunities to set aside. I don't want to sit here and tell you can be going after opportunities that are bigger than 4 million, right? I'm saying they are there, but even just 4 million, that's the normal direct award type range, 5-year, $4 million contract. So you have access to that, where as a large, you certainly don't have access to it. And as a what I call a normal small, you don't have access to the that information. Hold on one second. So I already mentioned direct award. And the last thing I want to share on the value of 8A, so I'm really trying to drive home the value here, is that it streamlines the acquisition. I tell this to OEMs or manufacturers of products where they're not in the federal market, but they sell to the federal market. What I say is when you team up with an 8A firm, you have a path that's a faster path to acquisition. The government makes decisions faster, and they're able to go through the acquisition lifecycle much faster when they're going down the 8A path. Right. And I'm not having a debate about whether there's other ways that are a little faster, but generally 8A opportunities that are 8A set aside go fairly fast. Often, like I mentioned with the STARS 3 contract vehicle, there's no protest to a certain level. That gives contracting officers confidence to be able to set opportunities aside. And then when I say it's easier, right, rarely do people protest opportunities that are set aside to an 8A firm. And that makes the acquisition lifecycle easier for the government, but it also makes it easier for you. So if you're trying to go down a path like Seaport Next Gen or GSA, there might be a lot of traction that's harder. But if they're going down a path of using 8A and using 8A STARS 3 or just doing a direct award, then that could speed up the acquisition path. Okay, so that's just laying in a little bit of the value, and maybe I'm laying a lot of the value there. I'm really trying to drive home that you can't go wrong teaming up with an 8A firm. And so let me give you some guidance on where to find 8A firms, or excuse me, where to find 8A opportunities that you can find are attractive to you, that makes sense to team up with an 8A. And then I'm going to wrap up with how do you find 8A companies to team with? How do you find the names of the companies, and how do you find the people that you can reach out and start developing the relationship? So a couple of places to look for opportunities that really fit your space, right, or set-asides. Just go into SAM or GovWin, whatever tool you're using, GovTribe, any of these tools that are out there that are just collecting the databases of opportunities, and look for set-aside opportunities. If we're an SDVO, we tend to just look at SDVO or total small or even full and open, but we might ignore 8A set-aside opportunities, saying, oh, that's set aside for 8As. Yes, but $32 billion is set aside for 8As. And if you can subcontract on those, then you can start getting a huge portion of the revenue from those relationships. And so look for set-asides where the opportunities have already been determined to be set aside for an 8A firm. So in SAM, for example, you would look at the sources sought or the RFI notices. You would look at the RFPs drop-in. The next place is going a little bit with SAM on looking at past awards, but really just looking into FPDS. What I like doing is looking into FPDS and finding contracts that were awarded. Let's say they were awarded 4 years ago and they're probably going to come up for recompete. I'm looking for ones that have been set aside to 8A that look like slam dunks for me. But the problem is I'm just a total small business. I'm not an 8A small business. This opportunity, 99% of the time, will stay with an 8A. So it'll come up again for competition, but it'll go with an 8A. So I might look for opportunities that are $5 or $10 million in value and go try to find an 8A firm, or hopefully I've already built a relationship and I already know who I'm going to work with, but I would find an 8A firm who can have a shot at winning that. And if we team up with them, they really can win it, right? And so I'm looking for expiring contracts on FPDS that previously were awarded under the 8A set aside, because that means they will come out that way again. And by working with the 8A firm, we're going to reach out to the contracting officer early enough that we express interest in that opportunity, right? It's got to be led by the 8A. But what we're trying to do is to head off any chance of them doing a sole source, because maybe they just sole source it to the incumbent, right? I'd rather it be competitive, especially if you're a larger firm, a larger small, or even a large prime. I want it to be competitive because then we can win it on the competition side. But FPDS is a great place to find opportunities. Just look for the expiring ones. The next one is contract vehicles. There's a lot of contract vehicles out there. Let me rephrase that. Not a lot, but there are enough contract vehicles out there that you can find some that fit your core competency. And these contract vehicles often have pools that are set aside for 8A. So CDC put out a contract a while ago that I had worked on, and it came out with two big pools, large or full and open and small. And in the small, they had separate pools for HubZone and 8A. And so when they had opportunities coming down on that vehicle, sometimes they would come out full and open, and sometimes they would be pushed into, hey, this opportunity can only be competed by people in this contract vehicle who were part of the 8A pool. And so you want to find those companies that are on a contract vehicle. If it has an 8A pool, go find partners who are on there. A great contract vehicle to start with is STARS 3. So the 8A STARS 3 contract vehicle out of GSA is a GWAC. Anybody in the government can use it. It's a best-in-class contract vehicle, so people are encouraged to use it. And I told you, it's a large contract vehicle with many task areas with 1,200 or so awardees. Get in there, find 2, 3, 4 awardees that you can build a strategic relationship with as you start going after opportunities. The great thing about that vehicle, STARS 3 in particular, is that you can go after opportunities that are being set aside for that vehicle, or you can push opportunities into that vehicle. The last place I want to tell you that where you can find opportunities that are set aside to 8A, but that you could be a part of, that you can go in and get 20, 30, or 40% as a teaming partner, are forecasts. I put out many forecasts. We have a whole directory on the GovCon Chamber's website. If you go to www.govconchamber.com, you will see in there a directory that we put together of forecasts. We keep trying to update it with new agencies and new links to forecasts. But basically, it's a series of links that just sends you to the forecast. Make sure you find the forecasts that are for your target agencies. Go in there, scrub the forecast, and find the 8A set-asides. I did this with DHS recently, where I just looked at all the opportunities in their forecast that are set aside to 8A, and I began to decide how could I fit into certain areas for some of my customers that are working. So forecasts are awesome because one thing, it lets you know about opportunities, but the other is they generally come up with a point of contact. So when you're talking with your 8A, you can say, hey, I'm happy to reach out to these people and try to learn more about the opportunity and contribute to the capture activity that's in there. So that's how you find opportunities, right? Set-asides, SAM.gov or GovWin. Go into FPDS and look in there. USA Spending is another way to look at it for expiring contracts. And then on contract vehicles and forecasts, look in those areas and you'll find opportunities that you can bring to your every 2-week discussion with your 8A teaming partners. All right, the last thing I want to just cover is how do you find 8A firms to go out and team? First thing you want to do before you ever reach out to any 8A firm, or really anybody, is determine a criteria. What's your requirements for the 8A company that you want to meet with, right? It's not enough that they're just 8A, right? It's just a tag. There's 5,000 companies out there. You could pick any. What you want is where you and the 8A can build a relationship that's win for them and win for you. Win-win, right? And so you want to find an 8A firm that is aligned to your core services. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but if they're doing software development in the Microsoft Stack area, and you're a SharePoint company, well, that's not a total conflict because Microsoft SharePoint might fit in there, but there's a good chance they don't specialize in SharePoint. So that would be a good match. So just figure out what's a good match for you in there, and then start looking for 8As along that. I just said one area, but you want to have a couple of other criteria. You might want them to have cultural match. You might want them to have a certain amount of experience. You might want them to be experienced in a certain agency. So determine that criteria before you reach out to people. As you go in to look for people, here's a couple of places you can look. If you're not tracking on this one, STARS 3. There's 1,200 companies that are in STARS 3, the contract vehicle. If you're in the IT professional services world, that is a great place to start because there's a lot of companies in there that you can find a few to create a strategic relationship with. The next place that you can look is FPDS. I talked about looking at FPDS for expiring contracts. Well, you can also use FPDS to look for winners, right? And USA Spending. You can go in there and just filter it down to say, show me who's winning in this agency in the last year or two that are 8A companies. And so they'll return the results. You just push it out to an Excel, right? Hopefully you know how to use these tools. Take the time to learn to use these tools. But you can push that data out to Excel, and then you can begin to process it by seeing which firms might be winning the most in the agencies you're looking at. It's a way to prioritize that list. But right there, FPDS and USA Spending will tell you who's in there, right? That's my criteria when I'm looking for a strategic partner. I'll work with anybody if they ask and it makes sense. But when I'm looking for a strategic partner and I have a set of criteria, more often than not, I want them to have experience in an agency like DHS, maybe doing $5 million in DHS so that we can work together to grow more. And so USA Spending and FPDS allow me to filter my list down to do that. So when I have a list of companies that I want to begin to reach out to, I've created a target list of companies that that potentially could be strategic 8A partners that I'm going to reach out to. Go to two ways to find people's information. First, and the best, is go to the Dynamic Small Business Search Tool, DSBS. In there is where the SBA tracks this, the 8A certification, so you can see when they expire, right? Working with an 8A firm is fine, but really you're looking for one that's going to be an 8A company for another 3+ years, not on the way out. But in there, you've got the owner's name, number, and email. More often than not, you're getting their personal email and their cell phone. Right? So you have their contact information in DSBS. Just like anything else, you're going to reach out and do a sales call. In this case, you're trying to sell your company to be a partner to them. And so you want to demonstrate your value to that 8A, right? You want to be able to talk about how you can help them win more contracts. I don't care if you're Booz Allen in a large business or you're a new business that's doing $1 million or less. You can bring value, but you need to make sure you're starting the conversation off with, hey, here's how I can bring value to your company, to your 8A business, because they will appreciate that. Another way to get people's contact information for 8A firms is if you go into STARS 3, and if you're in the IT, cyberspace, all that kind of technology space, the 1,200 companies that I mentioned in there, they have generally it's just a program manager, but more often than not, the program manager for the 8A STARS 3 contract vehicle is the owner of the company. And so you'll have their name, number, and email, because that's a requirement GSA has, is they want these companies to make it easy for people to contact them. Here, you can reach out and contact them. So hopefully all this made sense. I'm really trying to encourage you to look at 8A small businesses as a great source of partnership and towards success. When you start moving forward, if you're an 8A firm and you allow these firms to come in and to begin to build those relationships, well, now you have additional salespeople for you, right? And if you're one of these firms that are not an 8A company, when you work with an 8A company, you're getting access to $32 billion plus in the federal space. That's great. That money was set aside and you couldn't have access to it. But now having a relationship with an 8A company or several, you will be able to get access to that money. And that money will never go away. It's only increasing. And so that should be part of your strategic plan every year. I want a revenue stream coming from my relationships with 8A companies. So hopefully all that made sense. We discussed really that 3 paths of money and why 8A fits solidly into that first path of teaming with smalls. I talked a lot about the value of teaming with 8As. In particular, just this whole idea of getting access to opportunities and revenue or money that you couldn't get access to before. And then we talked about where you can find opportunities. You can go back and look later, but this whole idea of looking in SAM, looking at FPDS, looking at contract vehicles. And then I wrapped up with just how to find people. If you do this in 30 days, if you follow just kind of the guidance I gave you today, in 30 days, you can have a brand new or several brand new relationships with 8A firms that allow you to begin to access FY23 dollars as we go into the last half of the fiscal year. You'll be able to have these relationships in place that give you access to the 8A contract vehicle, that path. I mean, not 8A contract vehicle, but the 8A set aside vehicle, if you will. So go ahead and do this. The task I want to give you, the challenge I give you for today is just go look at your organization and determine if you have any 8A companies you're already working with, and look at them and see if it makes sense for you to determine how can you work together on purpose, not reactionary, but strategically and proactively to go after opportunities. So look at the people you're already working with and decide which 8As would make good strategic partners long term.